We're here today with Marshall Britt, designer of Stir Fry 18 and Re-Chord.
Welcome to Design Diary, the podcast where you get to look inside my board game design notebook as well as what's going on inside my head. We look at a new word each day from the sense of mechanics, tone, theme, or inspiration for a full game. Today's word is
Shenanigan, a devious trick used especially for an underhand purpose, a tricky or questionable practices or conduct, usually used in plural, shenanigans, or high-spirited or mischievous activity, usually used in plural. So I'm sure you've had some shenanigans in your day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's been a number of them. Some of them I can't talk about because they're certainly, I'm sure there could still be pending litigation.
Yeah, I have one. I have some too.
Yeah, in terms of thinking about it, like as games and as things go, and the playability and the playfulness of doing something sort of mischievous, that's an interesting thought process of like, there's two ways to think about that. Like one is a game where shenanigans are the point, right? Like, are they going to be evil shenanigans, or are they going to be, fun and light shenanigans? Are they going to, it's there's the different dichotomies of how nasty you can get with that sort of thing. So like, I think that just like, focusing on that is the fun of the game could be something. I also think there's like a hidden second thing for like design wise, like being a designer and like putting some shenanigans into your design
that's really interesting,
things, right? Like, yeah. Some sort of sneaky thing that like only you really understand inherently until people sort of catch on, or they go, oh, look what he did to us there, or look what that person did to us there. It's I find those shenanigans might be the fun ones and the ones that create moments for players sometimes, right?
Could you imagine like the ultimate shenanigan that's like a legacy game that just ends where like the players are the butt of the joke, year later?
You just trolled people for 9 months of time.
Yeah,
but in
exactly.
an enjoyable way. Sure. That's I wonder how that'd be received, right? At the end, I think I wonder if people would be, if they'd feel lied to, or if they would feel in on the joke.
And I wonder if they'd feel like that it's okay to break spoilers if at that point, because usually you don't hear a lot about the end of a legacy game.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I'm really proud of like the board game community for that. I have not played Pandemic Legacy, Risk Legacy, quite a few of the different popular Legacy games, and I still have no idea what happens at the end of those in any scenario, because no one's ever been rude enough to ruin it for me. Whereas I don't think there's a television show that I haven't watched that I don't know the ending to at some point about a month after. So
yeah, and like in the game industry there is a fair share of trolling, because people will like bring you down on if you don't agree with things and stuff like that, but they are very 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 good about their spoilers.
It seems that's that one, right? That's that one sort of hands off, like, okay, well, we all know that's a horrible thing to do, so just don't do that.
Yeah. So the things that they do that are trolling that they normally will get away with, we need to somehow warp that into the spoiler thing.
Yeah, and also try and figure out how to like gamify that, right?
Yeah,
the fact that no one will talk about spoilers, maybe a game where the focus is like actually putting spoilers out that are misinformation, where you're like, okay, we want you to actually tell people that this is the way this ends, but it's actually not. The real ending is something only the four of you know. I mean, that could be a fun marketing ploy at the very least, but that would be a shenanigan built into the game, right?
Exactly.
Like it'd be silliness.
So I've never played, or I have played, but I've never like really gotten into or enjoyed, and I say that I absolutely hate them, but I haven't played enough, was trick-taking games. What's your thought on trick-taking games?
So it's interesting. I know a lot about him. The partner in my company, Andrew, is like a trick-taking fiend. That's his. If I said like, what's the one thing you absolutely know the most about and love to play and could break if it's not built correctly, it'd be trick-taking games. And I was probably like you at some point, even a few years ago. I really didn't think that I was kind of like, okay, so it's like spades or it's like hearts. It's like it seems very similar to me. I've seen a few now that are kind of fun, but I think that like getting into those and being able to like sort of play around, like the ultimate trick taking game to me as a kid, I think the one I played the most was Go Fish.
Yeah.
And that's where you can kind of like, sort of like guess what's in people's hands, but like people would lie and Go Fish, right? Like there's different levels of players in Go Fish. There's people who, you have to check their hands sometimes and stuff. I mean, but as a kid, you learn that that's like a trick taking game with sort of a shenanigan aspect, right? Like, do you have this? Go fish. You know, you're gonna have to go find something else, or you know, you're trying to figure out what each other person has. I think there's definitely room for a fun mix of trick taking and stuff. But yeah, it's not. It's been one that I tend to avoid designing in because it feels somewhat simple a lot of the time.
For me, it's like one is like a lot of it is, and I'm talking out of no experience, is you know, somebody leads with something and then you have to follow with something. So it's kind of like you're just telling me what to do. Like, I don't have a ton of choice of what to play. You have to play this. I've seen ones where it obviously gives you this choice, but it sort of starts out with that no choice in the following side. But what I absolutely despise about it is from a product development side and just saying the first line of any trick-taking game is, this is a trick-taking game. And, like, I don't know anything else about it, and it doesn't suck me in with any theme or any, you know, unique mechanic. It's just, it's a trick-taking game. And that's usually the first line of any one of them. You could make like something as specific, like a deck builder or something like that, and kind of ease into the deck building and kind of get into what's awesome about it first. And trick-taking always leads with the trick-taking.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It's there's a fun thing about I've been listening to recently. A lot of designers and other people talking about stuff have been talking about signaling and how you signal to your players what you're playing. And it's a pretty blatant signal to say this is a trick-taking game. You know, it's you've defined a very, very certain experience. And I think actually, if you want to do it correctly, you kind of maybe do what you mentioned the other way, is sort of show what's cool about it and then get into the part where it's a trick-taking game. But that can be difficult to do if you're trying to reach a quick audience, you know, a captivated group, or and theming trick-taking games is difficult as well. I think if I remember, is Dead Man's Draw a bit of a trick-taking game? That was one that
might be.
And if I remember, that one's got a theme and it's got sort of some different fun things you can do in it. But my biggest issue is, I think, unless you plan to play a trick-taking game like with a group on a regular basis, they usually in my groups get played one or two times.
Okay.
And then we just don't tend to see them anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and that tends to be where you read trick-taking and you go, well, do I want to buy something for X amount of dollars that I'm only going to play once or twice and probably won't come out a whole lot more? Because there's so many other things that are on the market that are fun. So it's it can be interesting, but also I think if you put it into a different shell, or if you put it into something where there's a different hook, right? Like a second hook, you know, almost like, okay, this is a trick-taking game with a healthy dose of take that, or a healthy dose of social deduction, or something like that. I think you might be able to have, you know, added shenanigans that are going to make it more compelling. I still think you should start by saying this is a social deduction game with a trick-taking element, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, if trick-taking is the tool that gets you to the, you know, destination, that's totally cool. It's just that from the marketing and the product development side, and just thinking about it, it always drives me nuts. Where I read that and I'm like, okay, well, I'm out. You know, and it's not fair. But
who share that with you? It's maybe you're right. It may not be fair, but you know, I'm in the same camp with social deduction games. Usually, I hear social deduction and I go, okay, well, I've played Werewolf, I've played Mafia, I've played, you know, a number of games where you have to find out who the traitor is.
Yeah, you've kind of done it.
I kind of go, oh, well, I don't really care about another one of those right now. I'm not in the mood, you know. And that usually is only a social time where I'd want to do that. So those usually have to show off some sort of weird shenanigans to me to be interesting. You know, what's the catch? And the one that was pitched to us actually as a publisher that we ended up signing that we're working on now has an incredible hook, which is that you're, you know, blaming someone for stealing the cookie from the cookie jar, and it's a short, fast thing between siblings. Like, I can identify with that, and it's also fast, right? A 30-minute thing where we're going to sit around in a circle and one person's going to be the bad person and we're all going to try and figure out who that is. Those experiences, to me, while they were fun a few times, I don't like, you know, it seems like that's sort of its own genre of game. And usually when I hear that that's where it's at, I'm like, well, no, unless it's got some sort of outside shenanigans, some fun thing where it's like, oh, there's if somebody told me I've got a social deduction game with a dexterity element, I might absolutely go, well, I need to hear about this.
Could you imagine trying to hide your ability to, like, stack things? Like,
yeah, right. And so you're like, oh, I accidentally knocked it down. I'm so sorry, guys. You know, like, yeah, that sort of thing. I think that could be. I'd be intrigued. But that's Shenanigan added in on top of that particular genre.
It's kind of like the traitor that's in every party game nowadays. You know, we're all drawing the same thing except for this person's drawing something different.
And it can be I'm sure fun if it's the first time you've experienced it. But a lot of times when there's a number of games to choose from in that genre, there's some, in my opinion, that have done it really well. And so unless you've done something completely different, designing in that same space can feel at least a little bit derivative.
Yeah, for sure. So I brought up trick taking because that was where my mind went when I would see the word a devious trick, you know, tricky or questionable practices. So I was trying to think of like ways to, because I don't like trick taking, to like either mask a trick taking game in something else, and that's the shenanigan, or the opposite, where the shenanigan is we say it's a trick taking game and it's really like adjacent to a trick taking game, and you know, just trying to kind of mess with people and use that word at the same time. Sure,
I think you should definitely be careful about using shenanigans in signaling, right? It's like case in point. And again, I love the game. I think it's a pretty fun game. It was just signaled incorrectly, and this has been brought up by other people. This is not an original thought. I think Gil Hova is who I heard this from originally. But roller coaster, Coaster Park.
Yes.
Coaster Park. Is signaled to be a light, fun family game of rolling marbles. And as it turns out, it's a fairly difficult dexterity game. You have to be able to put the right kind of English on a marble to get it to do what it's supposed to do, which is, I mean,
is that what it is, or does it just not work?
Because so I think some people said that maybe it didn't work, but when it turns out it is, you're supposed to actually spin the ball to get over that first, that first one's so difficult. That's why it's worth so many points.
Yeah.
So the signal was sent in correctly that it was just a fun light game. It's actually a very difficult dexterity game.
So I will pull it back out because we bought it, put it together, and said, there's no way. My kids said, did they ever play test this? Which I loved hearing that out of my 7-year-old kid.
Isn't it fun? It's actually that it's not fully explained well, and it's signaled poorly, and it's hidden in a different shell.
Yeah,
and
sure.
that's shenanigan. You hit it so well that people thought it was something it was not. And for the most part, the second you even set it up the first time, right, you're going, oh, this does not work. Well, you've actually got to spin that first ball over the first hill.
Like, how do you go over a small hill and then a bigger one afterwards?
Exactly. So it's this very difficult, it's a really hard dexterity game.
And you're absolutely right, because have you seen the Board Game Geek reviews? I mean, it's like a 4.
Yes, I mean, again, it's going to do difficultly if you don't tell people what it is. So if you hide a trick-taking game in something else and people find out that's what it is, or they don't take the time to find out that's what it is, it's even worse, because they go, oh, this is broken, it doesn't work, this isn't even a trick-taking game, and throw it away rather than go, oh, this clever thing was a different thing.
Shenanigan might be okay, but my product is terrible.
That might be the case. Or vice versa. The product is great. Shenanigans, so bad that it signaled poorly, right? So, it's an interesting thing to think about. On the reverse side, making a trick-taking game where you're doing something funny, like or maybe even poking fun at trick-taking, that might be a fun shenanigan, right? Like, I mean, like almost like everyone's got to shoot the moon or something. I don't know. I mean, but just something in the lane of, poking fun at the trick taking. That might be a way to do it. Another way to do it might be just sort of like turning trick taking on its side. I think this may have been done, but where you're trying to essentially empty your hand and be the one without taking things. A trick non-taking game or something like that.
Yeah.
That could be another way to explore it. That's incredibly fun, and especially since with your lineup, a trick non-taking game would be better, considering you could probably do that easier with like an 18-card game.
We actually have a contest going right now, and I've seen multiple people talk about doing trick taking in 18 cards. So I'll be curious to see it, and I will hold back my semi-false hatred and see what happens.
I had to open myself up recently to social deduction to negotiate us doing a game like that, and I'm pretty happy I did, because I think there's a fun way for just about everything to exist. But yeah, I understand the aversion to it. I understand that there's a certain group of people who are going to go trick taking. That's simple. I don't want to do that. And there is always a little bit of a hesitation from the publishing side to launch into anything that's got a substantial percentage of people who might not like that particular type of game.
Yeah, absolutely. Is your co-publisher, your partner, are they from Midwest by any chance?
No. You know what? Actually, yes, St. Louis. Yes,
Because
yes.
I know that it's like a whole different world out there with trick taking.
Yeah, I was going to say he lives in South Texas now, but they are originally from St. Louis, and that's the whole family is all big into the trick taking.
That's amazing.
They all like them very much. Yeah, that's a good call. Wow.
Where did you grow up? Did you start up in Texas, or you were
South Texas? Yeah, San Antonio for almost all of my life. Yeah.
Nice. I'm New Jersey. We don't do anything here.
Oh, that's it's you did The Sopranos. I enjoyed The Sopranos very much. It was very good.
Yeah, we do life taking.
Yeah, that's though New Jersey has some pretty good conventions for board gaming. I will say that. So that's you true. Guys that's Metatopia is there if I remember correctly.
Yep, absolutely.
And then DexCon if I remember correctly.
It's in a couple weeks. Well? Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's. I think it's usually the 4th of July weekend.
Okay, it's going to be the same weekend as Dice Tower Con this year.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I may do my best to come down for DexCon for like a day or something. We'll see if I can sneak that way.
Cool. We'll have to catch up. So tell everybody about your how they get in touch with you and your publishing fun.
Yeah, for sure. Let me give you my direct phone number. You can just text me if y'all are into it. No, it's you can I
have it. I'll share it afterwards.
Just post it out there. That'll be great. Yanaguanagames.com is our website where you can go and find all of our games. Re-Chord and Stir Fry 18, of course, are the most popular. The Twitter account, I think, is Yanaguana Games. Our Facebook is Yanaguana Games. And you can find me, Marshall Britt, on Facebook. I usually do a Monday Mug Mention segment where I talk about board games for about a half hour on Facebook Live every Monday at 2:30 Eastern. So that's fun. I get to try a new cup of coffee and just chat with people and answer questions and usually have some topics as well. So
and you followed up on Friday with a real solid joke.
Every Friday on Facebook, I definitely have some sort of pun. I apologize very little for those, but I know that they probably drive some people insane.
Yeah. I look forward to them.
That's good. I hear that more often than not, but I'm sure the people that don't like them grit their teeth and just tell me, So I know that puns drive some people crazy. I find them to be a good way to shake off the usual day-to-day and kind of just be silly in the middle of a normal business day. So yeah, exactly. That's one of my favorite things. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is great. It was a lot of fun, and we should do it again sometime.
For sure. I appreciate it, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.